Our budget was thin at the time. The business was still like, hanging on threads. But I just wanted to go out and sit and have coffee with worship pastors. And I literally did that for 8 months.
What's going on, Loop Community? I am Jansen Roberts here with
Derek Kerr. How's it going?
the wonderful Derek Kerr.
Oh, thanks.
We're joining you guys for another podcast adventure. We're going to be talking about Ryan Dahl. Who is Ryan Dahl?
Ryan Dahl is the founder of PraiseCharts.
PraiseCharts. PraiseCharts.com. It's an awesome company, great website that has a lot of interesting resources for worship leaders. Lyrics and chord charts and tracks and a lot of different things that, and he's been in the game for a long time. So we're excited to talk to him today and just kind of pick his brain a little bit and see, what's going on in his world. I know I met Ryan at Experience Conference, which is a conference down in Orlando, Florida. Mm-hmm. It has a lot of just artists that show up there. I think it was like Carrie Job and just a bunch of they have a big choir and everything. And so he set up a booth with us. And it was like PraiseCharts on the left and Loop Community on the right. We had guys coming by to play songs, and they were using Loop Community tracks, and they were also looking at PraiseCharts.
Oh, nice.
From their iPad. So we were controlling tracks and seeing the charts from one device, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, he's just a really nice guy. He's super tall, big teddy bear guy, dreams big, and just so awesome. So I guess let's just jump in and let you guys get acquainted with Ryan Dahl.
Yeah, let's do it.
And PraiseCharts.com.
All right. Well, I've got Ryan Dahl here with me in the Loop Community office in downtown Chicago. Ryan, how's it going?
Oh, Matt, it's great. Great to be here. Spent the last night together having a great dinner with you and your wife, and just enjoy our friendship so much. And I love this bustling city. It's a little different than my hick down of Langley, British Columbia.
Yep, you came all the way from Canada.
Yep. So I've been on the road for a couple of days en route actually to Ottawa, where I'm going to a town where I was a worship pastor for a year back in 2004. So that goes way back into the early PraiseCharts years, but developed some good friendships there. And so they've invited me back to come and be a part of a ministry board there, and I'm going to play some music. And I did want to say this, Matt, is I got so desperate the other night when I was looking for, tracks, and I even have tracks in PraiseCharts, but I was like, what I really need is an awesome app to be able to control all these tracks. So
that's awesome.
Went to loopcommunity.com, and Matt didn't pay me to put this plug in, but I'm just Matt's a good friend, and you guys have a great resource, even helpful to me as a worship leader. So I got my iPad, I bought a little set of in-ear, I've got the wireless in-ears. I needed to supply everything.
Yeah.
The little Korg keyboard to control whether I'm going to the verse and the chorus and all that. All the while I'm trying to, lead a couple of songs and feel authentic and relaxed and connected and personable, relatable, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. That's why we made the app.
I know.
Exactly for that. So
here we are.
We've, so far we've already had a good morning. We met up for breakfast this morning and then walked down to the office here. And I don't know, it's always good hanging out with you. And it's, we were thinking about back to when did we meet? How did we, so for those of you guys who don't know, Ryan is the, basically the guy who invented the worship chord chart.
Basically, I invented worship music. Not.
Right. Well, yeah, so maybe you didn't invent the worship chord chart, but, you were one of the probably first like early pioneers of the worship chord chart websites where people could download them.
Making that as a resource for sure.
So that's something we're going to talk about for sure later. But I was thinking about, when did we first meet, the two of us? And I remember, you might have a different story. I think the first time I met you, we were in Dallas, Texas. And I actually was coming back from the airport. We were at a worship conference. And I had taken an allergy pill. And I was feeling a little like loopy, you know how those allergy pills can do that. And I actually got in a car accident on the way back from the airport. And not a really bad accident, but I did mess up like the bumper of some other guy's car. And that's honestly the only accident I've ever been in. But
really?
I came back from that, drove into this parking lot at the church. As I'm getting out of the car, I'm already upset about this car accident. I drop my iPhone and it shatters in the parking lot. And then I walk from there into the church, and that's when I met you. You were standing there at a PraiseCharts booth.
Really?
And that's how we first met.
Oh, the funny thing is, my memory is I thought I met you at a Loop Community booth in Seattle. That was the first time I was like walking down the aisle and I see this guy sitting behind a little stand there, and you were like trying to sell me a track or something like that.
Interesting.
And
right.
Anyways, we talked a little bit there and somehow connected. But just for people to know, I mean, however we first met, Matt and I have definitely become very close friends over probably 7 or 8 years, and share a lot in our personal lives and business lives and ministry lives. There's so many layers that we overlap, and we've kind of become a bit of a support network for each other. So just encouraging each other along. So one of my things is I have this app. I don't know if some of you may have heard of it, called Voxer, but it's like, I don't really listen to a lot of music in my car. Maybe I listen to the news, but I can only handle so much of that. Then maybe a podcast. But my favorite thing is to listen to a good close friend just ramble on for 15 or 20 minutes. And Matt, you are really good at that. You will just ramble on. And I can tell that, okay, this is going to be 25 minutes with Matt. I'm going to set it on 3 times speed and just listen away. So.
I just turn it on record and put it in my pocket. And then walk home and I just start talking.
So Matt has a half an hour walk to the office from his house. And often you took me on that walk today.
Yeah.
And boy, it sure is good to have a few buddies that you can just be real with, right? And so I think that's something that we wanted to convey even as we sit here, is like, this isn't two sort of publishing companies kind of talking about business at the core. It's two friends. You find someone else that shares. It's even more than sharing like business or ministry or worship music or technology or all of that is secondary to finding someone that's you just feel like you can be real with, and find that very important. So
it is very important, especially for leaders.
Yeah.
And, this is a very cliche thing to say, but, that leadership can be lonely.
Yep.
So we're both, running companies and leaders of teams, and it can be, a lonely place, and you need a someone else to talk to and to vent or to get ideas or just to share life with. And I feel like that you and I have had that.
Yep.
For a while now, and that's been really good, whether we're on Voxer or whether we're on a motorcycle ride through Canada.
Yep.
So tell us about PraiseCharts. So, I'm sure worship leaders listening to this podcast have heard of PraiseCharts.com. Yeah. If they haven't, this is like an amazing resource that you're missing out on. You should definitely check it out.
Yeah.
But tell us about, how long has it been around? How did it even get started?
Yeah. Well, it almost goes back 25 years ago. I was in graduate school studying to become. I didn't even know what I wanted to become at that day. I think I have some leadership gifts, some being personally relatable. I have some interests in and a sense of calling toward ministry and interest in the church and the Bible and a lot of those things. It was all sort of fragmented in my mind, and so I went through and did my bachelor's degree and master's degree, all in areas that were not totally related to either church ministry or or music for that matter, both areas that I ended up gravitating towards. But so music, worship, technology, those were kinds of things hovering around me, and just maybe a restlessness that I wanted to, I don't know, I just felt like I wanted to do something that would have a wide impact, a wide reach.
Yep.
And I could see it, touch it, and feel it. Like I knew I would gravitate towards something like that, but I just didn't know what it was until I became a worship pastor and was struggling with just music on the stand and having practices and wanting to learn new songs, and I didn't know what the chords were, and I was trying to listen to these albums, and is that like a C minor or a C minor 6 or all these very technical things about music that an avid worship leader wanted to sort of capture the song and train up a team. And then I started adding like trumpets and saxophones and flutes only because I wanted to bring more people onto the team. And it just makes, suddenly Sunday mornings was becoming more complex, and I didn't want to lose myself in the complexity of it. So anyways, it's all kind of in that season that I had this idea that maybe we could collect these songs together and make them available to other people.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I actually want to walk through the major mile markers of PraiseCharts.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So, to kind of see a timeline and an overview of just how this thing has grown, how it's changed, how you've changed, how it's affected your life. And so, the first mile marker is obviously when it started.
Yep.
And, you're moving from worship leader to businessman.
Yep.
What was that like?
Oh, I had deep struggle and deep strain. I honestly, I felt like I was forsaking the Lord's call on my life. I was really wrestled with it, that if I would give up this calling, this path that, he had me on, I was a pastor. So, I mean, that is like the ultimate, where else can you go in the Lord's favor, besides being a pastor, right? So honestly, even as I peel all of that back and just realize that I mean, if anyone is listening and you're a pastor and you're called to that, God bless you in that. But if there's anyone listening and you're a plumber or an electrician or you can be anything, and the Lord can work his ministry calling through you. And so I just had to, for my own self, discover a freedom that the Lord was putting some even quirky, nerdy kind of interests in my heart at the time, but he was going to be able to use those for his purposes. So it was a wrestle. And then of course the business side too. I mean, mixing business and worship is very, very unnerving, and how I could do that and retain a sense of integrity and honesty and so, I mean, all I can say is it has been a wrestle for sure. I
can relate with you in that I'm a pastor's kid and grew up leading worship and just wanting to be a worship leader. That's it. And then all of a sudden, Loop community comes into play, and this tension of now, I want to be leading worship, but now I'm the guy behind a computer helping other people lead worship,
That's
so
right.
On to mile marker 2. I think what's really interesting is that our companies are similar in that, our name is Loop Community. We have community in the name. And so everything we're doing is we're trying to build community. Now, you may not have community in your name, but you have done an amazing job, as I've watched, of building a community of, loyal customers, but also just friends, people that use PraiseCharts that are just a part of your family in a way, like the family of PraiseCharts. And I had heard at one point that you did a bus tour. Tell us about that. How did you build community in these early days of PraiseCharts?
Well, I definitely say, if I'm ever around and I meet someone who uses PraiseCharts or is a worship leader or has anything to do with the world of worship music, there's an immediate kind of connection or bond, because you just somehow you feel like you relate to them, right? And so and I have a personal sense of joy in blessing and helping worship leaders, like just trying to make their lives easier. Or, even with PraiseCharts, I always had this kind of heart that I just wanted to take some of the burden away from getting ready on Sunday so that those guys who were worship pastors could minister and go for more coffees or spend time counseling or listening to or talking, and not spending their whole week just ravaged by all the details of, getting their songs ready. So this bus tour, which was an RV, it's kind of like part of the journey of PraiseCharts starting in 1998, now almost 20 years ago. So in 2004, the internet had just kind of matured to a point where the site was doing fairly well online as a sort of a virtual entity. And I just kind of had this realization that I think I could do this from anywhere. And if I could, then maybe I should just try that. Like, my kids were 2, 3, 4, and 5 years old, so they weren't in school yet. So I'm a bit like that. Sometimes if I have an idea and I think I'm just going to do something crazy. So we found ourselves a 30-foot motorhome, put a 10-foot trailer behind it. I had a little motorcycle. I put that in the back of the trailer. We loaded up, and we had this general idea of where we wanted to go, but just started heading south. And it wasn't easy. Like, we were... our budget was thin at the time. The business was still hanging on threads, and how things were going, and relationships that we had with publishers and all of that kind of stuff. It was a very sort of precarious season, but I just wanted to go out and sit and have coffee with worship pastors. And I literally did that for 8 months. I would send emails out to the locations that we were coming towards, and I'd start to get invitations, and I'd be like, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I want to take you out for coffee. I just want to hear about your ministry, hear about, your life as a worship. Let's just relate together and talk.
Yeah.
And so we went to Dallas, then up to Chicago. I remember being here, driving through this city that we're in right now, then out to Ottawa, all the way down the East Coast, had Christmas in the Florida Keys, and then all around. I think we did 25,000 kilometers.
And that's a commitment right there. Yeah. Packing up, going for 8 months. I mean, some of us just start Facebook groups to build community.
Yeah.
And totally. Here you're like, going on an 8-month trip to actually spend time with worship pastors.
Yeah.
So mile marker 3, I would say, is, this started in what year did you start PraiseCharts?
1998.
Okay. So mile marker 3, I think, would be the rise of the internet age.
Yeah.
Because when you started PraiseCharts, this was not an internet company, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us about the original PraiseCharts and then how you transitioned to the digital age.
Well, the first way I ever delivered music was literally, after I got permission from a few key publishers, sending a few charts through the photocopier and sticking them in a manila shade envelope.
Wow.
Licking it, putting the stamps on, and just 1 or 2 charts, at a time. So then the great innovation of the fax machine kind of came along, and we started to be able to deliver music, through wires, quote unquote. And I still actually remember the day I personally was in my church office, because I was still a worship pastor at the time, and it was a Tuesday. I had worship practice at 5:00, and I was missing the charts for one song that I wanted to do in a couple of hours. So I called my arranger, who was 20 minutes away, and I said, I don't even have time to come and get the music from you. And then I just had this idea, could you fax it to me? So he faxes me like 20 pages. It was an orchestration. I guess I was, feeding music to my trumpet and sax and flute and all that kind of stuff. And the early fax machines, they were all coiled up in curly paper. It was like this special waxy
with the fringe
thing
on the side.
Exactly. So I had music literally like draping on the floor, but that was like my Einstein moment when I saw all that music, and I just thought, this is the future. This is how worship leaders are going to connect with sheet music in the future, and I wanted to be a part of that. So So, from the fax machine, then I like bought this little fax machine, had it in my home, and I would get orders and I would pull out the masters from the filing cabinet, stick 25 pages in the thing. I would dial it and send the music out, and then it would get to like page 12 or something, and half the papers would start to coil and stick and get stuck. And
how were people ordering it? Did you have a website?
Yeah, it was a website, and I had these little jingles that would go off, on my phone. It would be like do 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 do, and I'd be like, "Oh, an order came in," and our family would celebrate. And
if you had a website, did they not have like PDFs at the time, or what?
No, this was before PDF. I was just hearing about PDF. But that's actually a couple iterations after the fax machine. Then it was WinFax, because this was all in the age of Windows 3.1 was all just 3. Whatever. It was all just coming out. I mean, Matt, you were 9 years old at this time. So.
Wow. I know. I'm having a hard time following.
I'm from the Atari age. Matt's from the Nintendo age. Right, we discovered that yesterday, right? So anyways, it went from the fax machine to WinFax, and then from WinFax to eFax, which is still a thing out there, where I was discovering you could divert your fax through the internet and then send it to a fax machine. Then it was like divert the fax through the internet, but instead of them printing it out on a fax machine, they would just receive the file on their computer. Man. And then the PDF came. So we literally, probably in the year 2002, we were offering our files in an eFax and PDF format at the same time. People could choose either one, but it was all just because of the history of fax and but the magical moment, if you want to say this, probably for anyone who is a part of an internet company. And today, this is totally normal and it's not that breathtaking. But back in the day when I discovered that I could deliver a PDF and take payment in an automated thing, so that could happen at 3 a.m. somewhere else in the world, and I would wake up and the transaction would be complete, that blew my mind. Because you can just imagine, if you're living in a world where transactionally your mindset is, I always have to be present and I always have to listen, take the order, and deliver the order as a human interactive kind of thing. So that, again, anyone who's 15 or 18 years old, they're listening and going, well, that happens all the time. But this was in an era where that wasn't very common. So
right.
So then kind of came the season where I would be waking up and finding out that someone in Africa or Australia or England, had ordered the music while I was sleeping, and they got the music and they were already taking it to practice. That blew my mind, like that.
Yeah,
I could do that.
Right.
Looptimus Mini is a simple yet powerful way to control your music software. Use Looptimus Mini with Ableton Live, Prime, or any other MIDI-capable application. Looptimus Mini has 3 buttons that send MIDI notes, control changes, and program changes to your music software. Whether you're using Looptimus Mini on its own or together with Looptimus, the possibilities at your feet are endless. Giving you hands-free control, do even more with Looptimus Mini, now available at looptimus.com.
Okay, so that was mile marker 3. So going on to the next mile marker, number 4, now you've got, we're in the internet age. You went from fax to selling digital copies of these charts. And now, we're here in the year 2000 and, the late 2000s, 2010, 11, 12. And there is a overload, I feel, of worship resource websites. Yeah. Where at one point you were probably one of the only ones out there.
Yeah.
And now there's like hundreds of worship resource websites.
Yeah.
So what's it like for you guys now to sit in a sea of, all these other websites that offer chord charts, or maybe even ones that are like free?
I mean, yeah, the reality is our competition is, a number of places and websites where it's free. So we're battling against, I say that we're battling, but it's not really a battle. It's just a reality that stuff is available as second nature. We just expect it to be there and be free. But I think what I've kind of determined is, in particular, our focus is trying to reach the higher level worship leader, the worship pastor, the guy that's like, I don't have time to mess around with wrong chords or poor layout or, I don't know, just messiness. I just need the chart because I just want to go to practice and have a really great practice, get this song into our hearts and minds so that we can lead on Sunday. So $2 or free doesn't really matter to me.
Give me accurate.
Give me the quality, the goods. And so what happens, in any kind of business for that matter, is once you develop a relationship with a brand, quote unquote, you start to trust that when you see it's by this company and you have gotten music from them for a long time, you just keep going back. We keep going back to the same grocery store. We buy the same clothing brands. There are things that we trust, right? The reason why you keep going back is because that company determines that they're just going to keep being the best. So for me, even just in a broader business level, I just determined I just want to keep making Praise Charts great and not worry about other companies out there that are doing what I'm doing. I mean, the reality is even you and I, Matt, do similar things. But here we are, we sit together, we have coffee together. We're not talking about, are people going to Loop Community, or are they coming to Praise Charts, or, and I have friends like that in other similar types of industries. But I just don't want to adopt that kind of competitive mindset. I'm just trying to make Praise Charts as great as it can be.
Right.
And I'm inspired. I mean, I'm listening to you yesterday. You're telling me about some plans you have for Loop Community that's going to blow what you have right now out of the water. Like, I'm inspired by that. I'm thinking, shoot, I want to be great like that. I got to stay on the front side, right? So that's exciting. And that's what's going to keep people coming back to you. And same with me.
Yep.
At the end of the day, most people aren't spending that much money on Praise Charts. It's the success of Praise Charts would just come from me making a little bit of money off of hopefully a lot of people. And really the only way to do that is to be excellent, to be great at what you do, right? So
yeah. Well, because that's what it's about. We want to get music into churches and provide worship leaders with resources that help them. And so you guys recently at Praise Charts got a new office space.
Yeah.
In Vancouver, right?
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about like what the culture is like with your team there.
Well, yeah, in our office, there's brick and steel. We made all of our desks out of 1-inch thick steel pipe. It took us like probably a month, sending all the old fir, rough cut wood through planers, and then we had to miter them together, and we all worked as an office staff together painting. We were like covered in paint and dust and dirt for a couple of months. But now, when I go to the office, and then I put like a nice dartboard on the wall and a fireplace, and we set a light candles at the desks, and everything sort of has its space. And I just feel like I just want to sit here and just kind of soak in this space.
Environment is important. My wife, who's a lawyer, but also interior designer.
Right.
Two very different things.
Yep.
She's all about that, like creating spaces that people just feel comfortable. Yep. And I do think that is important for just quality of life in a way. And it seems like the theme of our entire conversation, and I guess this shouldn't surprise me because I'm talking to Ryan Dahl here, but like the man who's about like, I don't know, the theme is like experience and relational experience over, just let's get things done and task management.
Right.
And that's why I bet you that your team loves you and loves working with you. And how have you kind of developed that culture? Because I bet there's, worship guys listening to this who work on teams, creative teams and with pastors. And how do we build our lives so that, we're still getting things done, but we're doing it in a way where, everybody is just enjoying each other and building relational community with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say I'm just thinking about one of the more impacting books that I read early on in my sort of business leadership growth was called Good to Great. You probably know of that red book.
It's a good book.
And there's a chapter on there about the bus. There's the analogy of the bus and getting the right people on the bus. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of chemistry that happens, it's the chemistry, even Matt, that you and I share together. It's about finding the right people. That's really important. And then once you find the right people, there's more of a freedom to set them free and just let them be actually who they are. So in our staff, we have a pretty tight, small staff. And I think, for most of us, we would feel like we're almost best friends. And yet we're friends in our business culture. We have other friends that are outside of the business. But when we come to work, we feel like family. We feel like there's a friendship core, there. So,
but do you feel like you can still like kind of push back on each other as family to get things done? Because somehow you're getting things done.
Yeah.
But you have a friendly feel. Yeah.
But I would say I do that by, it's not just me pushing back on them. I want to give them the freedom to push back on me. So, so we debate. Argue. I mean, we don't really argue, but we're like, I don't agree with that. Or, I don't think we should be doing that. I mean, I have two gals, Natasha and Charlene, and they totally have the freedom to push back on me and say, Ryan, we think you're off base on this, or you need to rethink this, or be careful. This isn't a time to say awkward things, Ryan. We have this sort of playful banter, but there's a serious tone to it at times. And even just as recent as last week, we were trying to, figure out what direction to go on something. And I, sent a Vox to, a voice message, whatever, out to the girls. And I was like, I totally do not agree with this. Like, I don't see where you guys are coming from. But we do that with a spirit of confidence because there's a relationship layer. At the same time, Charlene was just telling us that she celebrated 10 years with PraiseCharts, and she wrote an email to me and a couple other people on her team just saying, guys, like, my season at PraiseCharts has been the best season of my life. I feel like I have gone through the greatest challenges and the highest joys, and you guys have shared in that season with me. So, like when Natasha, she turned 40 a couple of years ago, she actually lives down in Portland, so she's not local in our office. But I took two other of our core staff, and we got on a plane, flew to Portland that morning. And so we have staff meetings on the phone on Wednesday mornings. And I was on the phone with Natasha, all four of us. And we literally walked right into her bedroom or her office room. And we're like, surprise, no more staff meeting. We're going to have a night on the town. So anyways, we try to do, fun things like that just celebrate the relational side of who we are, right? And of course, Natasha, was all disheveled because we had, she had things she wanted to do that day. And, but, it's the privilege of being close and tight knit.
Yeah. Like I love it. So. I think, for everybody listening, next time you are listening to that click track in your ears, listening to the track, or maybe you look at your music stand and you see a praise chart there, think relational, think experience, think enjoy the moment. Right. Think community.
Be playful. Yeah.
Maybe just let that be a reminder of take a breath.
Right.
Whatever it is that maybe you're stressed out about, or, rehearsals going crazy, or like people are pushing you through this run through, and maybe just take a breather and think, let me just love the people around me.
Yeah.
Let me, just build relationship with these people and do ministry together and enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
Be playful like Ryan Dahl.
Or, I would say, like Jesus.
Jesus. Yeah.
Let's acknowledge the playful. I was just saying to you a scripture this morning, Matt, from Philippians 2, where it talks about how Christ, who even though he was God, he didn't consider it something to be grasped or seized. It's like he was God, but he didn't go around declaring it and acting like it, quote unquote. So, and so much so that you would have hundreds of years of people debating, was he God or was he not? Because people would, focus on, well, he did this and he was just acting like a regular old guy.
Right.
But here it says he was God, right? And so some people listening, you might be in high level positions. You might be like the worship pastor, or the where people are nervous in your presence, or maybe you're the pastor of your church. Maybe it's a big church and you've got this kind of image and you've got this position, and I have just kind of discovered true power and true influence in the Spirit of Jesus comes from laying that down or sharing that with other people and trying to elevate people around you. And some of the way, like the playfulness maybe just comes from a sense of, I don't want you to feel like I'm a bigger guy than whatever. Let's just dispel that image. I even allow myself to be quirky and awkward just to kind of like level that playing field. We came in here today and with some of your staff, they all know that I like board games, and I will have my 15-year-old son's friends come over to my house to play board games with me, and my kids won't even be at the table, because I just like the spirit of, youthful playfulness, right? And we enjoy playing, Catan like games or worker placement like strategy, and we banter and we're trying to beat each other and all that kind of stuff, but it all sort of elevates that spirit of joy and playfulness. So really feel like there's something to that things can get done. Important things, can get done. Big companies can be led by people that still have their feet on the ground. Right. So,
and maybe in a much healthier way.
Yeah.
Well, that's so good. I know that anytime now I see a PraiseCharts logo on a chart, I'm going to think playfulness.
All right. That's a good tagline.
It is good.
Should consider
that. I think it's a good reminder.
Be playful.
And be present.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
Ryan, it's good to have you. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast.
And my pleasure.
Always good hanging out with you.
Right on.
Talk to you later.
Thank you.
This is Community Talk.
Wow, that was great. Great interview with Matt and Ryan. Appreciate Ryan for taking the time to do that with us. He just seems like such a genuine guy and passionate, and like you said before, definitely dreams big.
Yeah.
I really liked how at the beginning he kind of talked about when he was in grad school and he just didn't know what he wanted to do. I feel like I can relate to that.
Yeah.
When I was in school, just didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Doesn't everybody? They're like,
right.
Okay, my mom and dad said I need to go to college.
Right.
I checked that box off. Now what?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So he looked at like his passions, leadership and ministry and church, and came up with PraiseCharts.com.
Yeah. It's really a good resource, like a good thing that a lot of worship leaders kind of go to every week, right? They need these charts. They need to be able to have resources they can give to their team members to say, okay, what key is the song in? How are we going to play the song? And I think by him creating this platform, he's been able to give a lot of these teams across the world the ability to like kind of have one place where they can like a central hub where they all are on the same page and can see everything and play in sync. And I think it's without that and what he's developed a long time ago, I think it was doable. It was just more difficult,
right?
Speaking of a long time ago,
he talked a lot about the fax machine. I personally have never sent a fax. Came a little before my time.
Oh man, it's the worst. Faxes are, I don't even know why. Like, honestly, there are a lot of companies that still use faxes, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, my mom, I was talking to her the other day, she's like, yeah, we have a fax machine. She works from home. and they had to come. She had to like have her company come set up a line dedicated to faxes, and I'm like, email. It's email is here,
right?
Like, why
email,
are we using
PDF.
faxes? Like, what's going on?
Oh man.
Oh gosh. So, anyways,
it sounded like a pain, but
yeah. And licking stamps and putting them in Manila file folders and like actually mailing those. Nobody does that anymore.
Right.
So.
Exactly. It was cool though to hear him talk about his like 8-month trip with his family in a trailer in a bus around the country to spend time with worship leaders. I think. Oh man. So often we get kind of caught up in like the easy way or the correct way to build communities. Yeah. And just to hear that like totally different idea.
I don't know, like, more kudos to him for being able to do that, or like his family for putting up with it in such a like closed space for that long. I would have gone crazy.
For sure.
Like, what do you guys do? What does your dad do? Oh, we travel the country in a, Winnebago or whatever. And we just like, that's so crazy.
My family wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah.
It would have been
oh gosh,
too close.
Oh man. One thing I really appreciate about Ryan is that he loves relationships. Like he, everywhere he goes, he's always super easy to connect with. Like if he entered a room of, 100 people, by in an hour, he would have like 50 to 60 friends. Oh, he's not going to know everybody, but he just instantly makes a lot of connections. Nice. And that's what I appreciate about him and why he's able to do what he does. I think he just has a bond with so many people and has a lot of these, different layers of himself to be able to relate to people. And so I appreciate that about who he is and what he does. And he's been in the game a long time.
Yeah. I definitely want to hit on just the end of the interview. He talked about enjoying the moment and being present, and like how sometimes we get so focused and stressed out on like the task that we forget to be playful. And him and Matt talked a lot about just being playful. Like Matt says, like Ryan, and Ryan instantly goes, well, I'm playful because of Jesus. And that was just so cool. I think a lot of times it's hard to like not focus on the task or focus on the act of actually like leading worship instead of focusing on what's really important.
Yeah, totally. It's good to put things in perspective, and make sure that, why do you step on the stage every day? Why do you open up, why do you go to PraiseCharts? Why are you coming to Loop Community? Why every week do you do this ritual of like making sure you have everybody scheduled and getting them the resources they need? And I think all that is secondary to the main goal, right? Which is to you're connecting with who God is, and then it's like an outpouring of that as you get in front of people on a stage and try to do that in a formal setting, right? You're expressing that as a congregation together, and all of these things that we do and what PraiseCharts does, it's all just like resources to kind of help lift that up. Right. It's not like the main thing, but it's just like it helps secure the foundation of making us be able to move forward and simplify things and have tools that are in our tool belts that just make what we do even easier. The biggest thing about Ryan that I appreciate is he has a heart to just make things simple. Like if he sees things that are done by, music ministries and worship leaders in a certain way, and he's like, you know what, let's find a way to simplify that. Mm-hmm. That is like his heart, right? His heart is saying, I want to serve worship leaders to help them lead their congregations better. So how can I help simplify that process for them?
Right.
So that's
you said just offering like chord charts where you don't have to worry, and they're accurate and they're correct, and you can just take them to practice and you're good.
Right. And if you're ever on loopcommunity.com, we have a lot of songs that have the chart links, and a lot of times that takes you to PraiseCharts.
Right.
We've known Ryan and PraiseCharts, and we've had a great partnership with them for such a long time. So if you ever need a chart for something or need to know how the song is played or how it goes, you can always check out those chart links on our site, or just go to PraiseCharts.com and check them out. They have a lot of great resources there as well. And, you won't be sorry that you use this resource. It's so great.
For sure.
So, yeah, we really appreciate that. We, special thanks to Ryan for being able to come in and
definitely
will be willing to talk with us and just kind of share his heart and his passion. And again, just check out PraiseCharts.com and just kind of browse their site and see all the things they have. And, hopefully that will help your ministry. Cool. Well, guys, we've really enjoyed this segment. and just being able to hear from Ryan.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to see him soon.
For sure.
Because, he, every time we're around him, he, just, it's a really enjoyable time. Like there's a lot of laughs, a lot of nostalgia, storytelling. So we always like hanging out with Ryan. So maybe we'll be able to do that soon. All right, guys, until next time, we'll be coming at you with another interesting podcast soon.
For sure.
So be sure to subscribe to us and check us out on loopcommunity.com and on social media. See you guys.
See ya. All right, you already know what I'm going to say. Please subscribe.